I have our Spanish Mass here at the parish for the last 3 Sundays of Ordinary Time. So I came up with the idea at the Spanish Masses of preaching on the 3 last destinations, right, of heaven, hell, and purgatory. So I preached on purgatory in Spanish last week. This week I'm preaching on heaven. So as they say, work smarter, not harder. So I thought I'd preach on heaven as well here in our English Mass, because our readings really lend themselves to it very well. So if you are visiting us here at St. John Vianney, welcome. You picked the perfect weekend to come, because next weekend is going to be all about the unquenchable and eternal fires of hell. And if you're on vacation, that's kind of a buzzkill, right? So this weekend is heaven, right? The destiny that all of us as Christians look forward to with great longing and hope. I think oftentimes the popularized view of heaven is like this, we're up in the clouds kind of floating, everybody has white robes on, and we call each other brother, and there's like a chocolate fountain and stuff. And there's this idealized view of heaven. And I think paradoxically, our Catholic view of heaven is much more earthy, actually. Right? But we believe by faith that there are souls of the just at this moment in heaven before our Lord. Right? And they are waiting to be joined to their resurrected body. That at the end of time, when Christ reappears in his second coming, all humans will be raised from the dead. They will be in some mysterious way reunited with their body. We will have in heaven a glorified body and soul. And so we will live in some way, which we truly don't understand. St. Paul calls it a spiritualized body. But we will live body and soul forever in heaven. And we also know that heaven and earth themselves will be recreated. That we will live, in some sense, in what he calls a new heaven and a new earth. This is said several times throughout scriptures, right? That heaven will be a truly bodily, earthly, physical place where we, for all eternity, will be perfectly fulfilled by living body and soul in God's presence. This is best described by theologians who call this the beatific vision, which means that in heaven, I will have a vision. I will be able to perceive and receive God's essence. I will know who God is. I will know him entirely without exhausting who he is at the same time. And by knowing who God is and being loved by him and loving him in return, I will be perfectly blessed. I will be perfectly fulfilled in all of my human capacities. One of the quickest questions that pops up when we think about heaven is, well, do I get to see my family there? Do I get to see my pet dog there? I'm not touching the dog thing. That's a whole separate thing, right? But it's very quite curious, actually, to think about what it will be like to be with our family in heaven. Because it speaks to the great magnitude of our Lord, that it is incredibly special to me to be with my family in heaven, right? I want to spend all of eternity in blessedness with my mom, with my dad, with my brothers. That's very special to me. And yet, in some mysterious way, that doesn't take away from the goodness of my family, right? Having my mother in heaven, in fact, doesn't add anything to the glory of God that I receive. In the same way that infinity is the same as infinity plus 1, right? Heaven is the same as heaven plus my mom, right? And that says nothing about my mom. She's a wonderful lady. But God is so immense in his perfection and so grand in his goodness that nothing and no one could add anything to it. And for me, for all eternity, to live in his presence is enough for me, right? What a mystery that is. We truly don't even understand yet what that means. That simply living in God's presence is enough for me. And yet we share that presence in a very special way with the whole church, with our family and friends. It makes me think a lot of when I was a seminarian studying in school. I was a good student, I swear, but I watched a lot of movies on the weekends with my friends. Almost every Friday night, I had a group of friends, and it was like clockwork. Marvin would make the popcorn, I'd bring the alcohol, Gabe would just show up. He's a great guy, but he would just show up. And we would always watch a movie every Friday night. And I loved watching movies with my friends. It's a totally different experience, right? Watching a movie by myself in my room on my laptop is not the same as sitting in the lounge with all my friends eating popcorn, watching the same movie, right? that being with my friends, even if we never say anything, even if, right, there's nothing but just us together watching the film, is a wonderful experience. Heaven will be a wonderful experience where all the church together will be receiving the great glory and goodness that is God's presence to you and to me. And we will together, in some mysterious way, right, share in looking to God and sharing in his love. I think part of the reason why heaven doesn't sound terribly exciting to people is that we think of the beatific vision as if we're just sitting for all eternity, like watching something, right? As if heaven is this like nature documentary on God, where Sir David Attenborough, is like narrating the film. He's like, before all things were created, God existed outside of time. You're like, how long is this for? Oh, forever? Okay, well, that's not terribly fun, right? And I think part of that is because we have a misconception of what really vision is and of what God is. That our catechism describes the beatific vision as an intuitive vision. That in the depth of my heart, in an intuitive way, God will be always and fully present to me. And I will be always fully and present to him. And if that's not exciting, I think our idea of who God is a bit too small. I was reading a science book a couple years ago that explained what the term observable universe means. I don't know if you've ever heard that, they'll say like this, the whole observable universe. And I've always wondered, like, why do they keep saying observable universe? And this book explained what it is. There are only so much of the universe that we can observe and know and see. And our universe is so big that there are stars that are hurtling away from us at this moment at such a high speed and so far away from us that given even an infinity of time, the light from that star will never reach us. There are whole parts of our universe, which is so large, that given an infinity of time, the light will never get to us. There are whole parts of our universe that we will never observe. It is unobservable. We cannot know that it's there. So the observable universe is all the things that we even can see. Right? And the God who made that universe, which is so large and so beautiful in its magnificence, right? Even this simple world, this earth that we're floating on, even this little town of Sedona, right, is so immeasurably beautiful. That God will be our personal possession for all time, right? That I will be with him forever, and he will be mine forever. And there is nothing that I can do to distance myself from him or he from me. And I can just simply live in the grandness of his presence, that knowing him and loving him more and more each moment, one after the next, cannot exhaust who he is. That for all eternity, in some mysterious way, right, we will be in our bodies in a glorified heaven and earth, and just simply living in the glory and love of that being who's here with us this evening, right, at this very altar. Heaven will be falling in love more and more and more with an immeasurably good being who loves me in an immeasurable way. And therefore, right, for all eternity, we'll just simply be caught up and lost in what a great gift that really is, and what a wonderful life it is to be with him perfectly, body and soul forever. So brothers and sisters, let's just prepare ourselves for that life today, right? That our Lord has such love for us to prepare a home for us, to build for us a church, that here this evening we can be with him, right? We can receive him body and soul, even now, in an anticipation of heaven, that even now I can live with him and he can live with me. The God who made this whole universe humbles himself to make a heaven of this altar. Right? Let's allow him to make a heaven of our hearts as well. Right? That here and now today, he can dwell with us in a hidden way that we will never understand until we actually get there to heaven. But let us receive our Lord. Let us worship him this evening with great love and anticipation of the love and glory which is ours in heaven.